Okay, good afternoon, students. I hope I'm audible to all. Online students, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. We have to start with the question answers of this chapter. We had completed the chapter yesterday, so we would start with the question answers. Reading with insight. What is it that draws Derry towards Mr. Lamb in spite of himself? So, in spite of himself का क्या मतलब है यहाँ पे पहले ये बताओ. What do you mean by in spite of himself? Yes. In spite of himself, yes, Akarshita, always bolo.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, so according to me, in spite of himself over here means that in spite of Mr. Lamb, which are the qualities we can say that attracts Derry to that particular place?
In
It's
spite
not the human form, basically. Basically, the characteristics or the features.
Correct. Anybody else? In spite of himself का क्या मतलब हो सकता है? Think and tell. In spite, yes, in spite of the fact that he was totally, antisocial kind of a person, in spite of the fact that he was totally engrossed, thinking about his own face throughout, day in and day out, okay, 24/7. In spite of this fact, but in spite of the fact that he doesn't like mingling with people, in spite of the fact that he doesn't like socializing, still he was attracted towards Mr. Lamb. Okay, so what is it that draws him towards him? Batao. What is, yes, Tushita, what is it that draws Derry towards Mr. Lamb?
Yes, ma'am. Terry finds Mr. Lamb different from others because he doesn't show any pity towards him, and Mr. Lamb shows no shock or fear on seeing his burnt face. Rather, he talks with him in a loving manner, and he also welcomes him to his garden and calls him his friend. And he says that things look outwardly different, but inwardly they are all same. And he tells Teddy never to think of his burnt face. And by such words of encouragement, Terry draws towards Lamb in spite of himself.
Yes, and there is a lot of difference between the two, not only in their ages. What is the major difference between the perspectives of the two people? One is totally pessimistic, and the other one is totally optimistic. He always looks at the brighter sides of the things. Okay, and whereas Derry is kind of a reserved kind of a boy who always looks at the darker side of the things and the negative sides of the things. So they have many things in similar, they have some similar kind of an experience as far as their handicap is concerned. But Mr. Lamb's outlook is totally different, and he accepts each and everything as it is, and he tries his best to move on with the things. He tries his best to move on with life, and the way he treats, as Sushita has elaborated, the way he treated Derry, that was it. That drew Derry towards him. He didn't. He was not afraid of him. He just encouraged him about everything, and the difference that we talked about that day was what is required is empathy, not sympathy. So Mr. Lamb was empathetic towards Derry, not sympathetic towards him, and he the radical transformation that we could see in Derry was only because of Mr. Lamb. Okay, anything else which anybody would like to add on to it? Bolo, Kiran, anything? Bolo. Ma'am, Gary's face was destroyed. Loudly. Huh. Gary's face was damaged just because of the acid, and before meeting Lamb, he was very much he was feeling very inferior. He did not want to explore the world, but after meeting with Lamb, he wanted to explore the world. He even protested with his mother that he wanted to go back over there. He wanted to go back. Yes. He wanted to go back. So he was greatly inspired, he was greatly guided by Mr. Lamb, and also he, whatever things Mr. Lamb told him, those were the things that were never ever spoken to him before Mr. Lamb. ठीक है, वो सारी बातें जो Mr. Lamb ने उससे कही, ऐसा उसके साथ किसी ने आज तक बात नहीं की थी. ठीक है, so he was greatly influenced by him, he was greatly inspired by him, and he was greatly motivated by him, and that is why he got changed. In which section of the play does Mr. Lamb display signs of loneliness and disappointment? What are the ways in which Mr. Lamb tries to overcome these feelings? In which section do we feel that Mr. Lamb himself is lonely? In the first section, he displays signs of loneliness. Akashita, you can give the answer. Let me just read out what Tushita had written. He displays signs of loneliness. The example he gave was about bees, that they sing, not buzz. His perception was different from others, yes. And what else? How do we know that he himself was very lonely and disappointed? Yes, Akarshita. Bolo.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, first of all, if we start noting the points, we can over here even add where there was first scene's last line that includes that people never come back here. That even
Very good.
represents loneliness and disappointment if we see
Yes.
closely. That he says, he mimics basically that people say that they will come, but it never comes. And the way the thing that he says that the house is empty represents loneliness too, because if it would have somebody else it won't be empty. And how he copes up with all this is that he keeps himself busy. He sees positivity in everything. For example, bee buzzing, it can be very disturbing, very annoying for few people, but for him it's music to his ears. And the other thing we can even say is that he likes transparency. That's why he doesn't have any curtains. He doesn't like shutting anything off. And he loves what God has created. So,
Yes.
and he even likes the hobby of reading about observing things and thinking over them. And he even likes to make candies for children who give him various names like
Lame lamb.
lame lamb.
Yes.
But he's very optimistic about everything.
Yes, very good. So we see, towards the end of the first scene, we see that he's very lonely, but the signs come pretty early when Derry asks him about. There's no difference between flowers, herbs, and weeds. Yes, that you can include, but then when Derry asks him about the names of the people, who are his friends. He's not able to give any names, so there's a slight hint there also. But a clear indication only comes towards the end of the first scene when he says, what is it that he says? He actually mimics. He actually copies, imitates the people who say that we would come back, but they never come back. Okay, so these lines clearly indicate that he is very disappointed and he's very lonely because he doesn't have any company at all. But he's a very positive kind of a person. So he overcomes all these feelings. In what way? He gets himself surrounded by books. So the house, he never says it that it's an empty house. He says it's full. It's a house which is full of books, and you will find so many things inside his house. And also he makes jellies, he makes jams for children, and then he doesn't mind when children or people call him lazy lamb. कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता उसको उससे. And he ignores all the comments that are passed on to him. And he's a very transparent, open-minded, and very large-hearted kind of a person. And he also says that whatever belongs to him belongs to everyone. So he a kind of a universal brotherhood kind of feeling he's having. And he keeps his gates open. He keeps his there are no curtains on his windows, which clearly indicate that each and everyone is welcome in his house as well as in his garden. The actual pain or inconvenience, third question, is caused by physical impairment is often much less than the sense of alienation felt by the person with disabilities. What is the kind of behavior that the person expects from others? We have discussed it in detail. I want more children to participate, not just Akarshita or Tushita. I need more people to participate in this. Physical impairment is faced by both of them, Mr. Lamb as well as by Derry. So, what is it? What kind of a behavior is it that is expected from others by such people? You will talk about the physical impairments, you will talk about the physical disabilities, then you're going to elaborate upon this. Somebody else apart from Akarshita. It is not that only Akarshita is or Tushita, they have to answer every time. It's Aryan. Aryan Dutt.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, so in the play On the Face of It, ma'am, the author focuses our attention on physical pain and mental anguish of the person suffering from some kind of physical impairment. The playwright presents two leading characters. One is an old man and a small boy, where the old man has a tin leg, which hurts him when it came off, but eventually he got used to it. But sometimes he feels that it is inconvenient for him to run or
to climb a tree or a ladder, and he lives alone in a very big house with a garden. Whereas on the other side, there is this boy who got his face badly burnt by acid. He felt physical pain then, and but after the discharge from hospital, he feels hurt at the attitude of people towards him. He feels that he is different from others and he is not accepted in the society. Yes. So such kind of people expect that others should be kind and considerate towards them because they are not different. They have some they have some changes in their physical appearance, but that doesn't make them completely different from others. They want people to be kind towards them, and they don't want them to be separated from the society or be mocked at them or to be made fun of it.
Yes, very good. So these people are not disabled. This is what he wants to say, that people, the reaction of the people matters the most. It is not spirit of equality and optimism is much needed. Yes, very good. A person with such disabilities expects empathy rather than sympathy. I'm just going to read out what the children have written and then I'll add a few things. A person with such disabilities expects empathy and not sympathy. He also expects others to be understanding rather than remind him or her of their disability. Yes, a person with physical impairment can live life with honor and respect. So, what is required is they require dignity in their life. They want that each and every person who is around them should treat them with dignity, not with the sense of pity. So, we these days we don't call disabled as disabled. What do we? There's a term for that. There's a phrase for that. We call them differently able. They are not disabled, but they are differently able. So each and every person has some or the other skill. You cannot say that this child or this person, this student is disabled. He has some or the other ability, some or the other skill. कोई ना कोई स्किल, कोई ना कोई एबिलिटी सब में होती है, तो वो डिफरेंटली एबल्ड है, वो डिसेबल्ड नहीं है. ठीक है. एंड ऑल्सो with honor and respect, if he is not exposed and punished with ruthless pity. Yes, yes, very good, Mankor, Tushita and Akarshita. So what is required is not pity, not sympathy, but compassion, consideration and empathy. This is what is required. They want people not to, like as is the case of Derry. Why does he feel as a socially outcast kind of a person? Because nobody treats him as his or her equal. People are afraid of him. The moment they see his burnt face, they prefer to either pass on comments or stay away from him. So he wants that they should be internalized in the society, and he doesn't like, for example, he gave an example of a lady who, when he had come from the hospital, when she had said that he would have been better off if he had stayed in the hospital with the same kind of people. ओके, तो वो तो ये कह रही थी कि ऐसे लोगों को अपने जैसे लोगों के साथ ही रहना चाहिए. ठीक है, तो हमें इंक्लूड करना है. दिस इज व्हाट इंक्लूसिव एजुकेशन इज. हमने सब बच्चों को, हर तरह के बच्चों को इंक्लूड करना है. इंक्लूसिव एजुकेशन का भी यही मतलब होता है. ठीक है, टू इंक्लूड ईच एंड एवरीबडी, ईच एंड एवरी चाइल्ड इन द मेन स्ट्रीम. ठीक है, एक्सक्लूड नहीं करना किसी को. ठीक है, नेक्स्ट इज will back to his old seclusion, or will Mr. Lamb's brief association effect a change in the kind of life he will lead in the future? Yes. Their interaction was not a very long one, it was a very short, brief kind of an interaction. But do you think that he would be getting back to his old seclusion, or would it affect a change in the kind of life he will lead in the future? Batao? What kind of a child Derry was? Yes, Rajdeep.
Ma'am, Derry, before meeting Mr. Lamb, was an insecure child. He had his own insecurities because of the way he looked. But ma'am, I don't think he will go back into his old seclusion. Instead, I think he will become a successful person, a much more optimistic and a positive person, and he will lead life in his own way. He will block voices, or he will ignore people who will mock him. And I think he will always keep the lessons Mr. Lamb taught him.
Yes. So before meeting him, he was a very complex ridden child. He suffered from inferiority complex. But after meeting him, like he said, you should not believe all you hear. These kinds of things, which clearly indicate that he has been transformed. He says, I want to go back there. If I won't ever go back there, then I will never go anywhere in the world. So all these kinds of things. And he said that he told me things nobody has ever said. So all these kinds of statements that have been made by Derry, they clearly indicate that now that negativity that was there in him, it has phased out. वो negativity खत्म हो गई है. Again, it is a matter of past, and he's going to rock the world. He's going to move on with his life in the best possible way. Okay, I'll just read out what some of the students had written. Tushita says, Mr. Lamb boosted his self confidence and helped him to respect his own self. Yes. Derry starts believing in his strengths rather than his appearance. Okay, very good. The small association of Derry with Mr. Lamb raised his self assurance and encouraged him to respect himself. Yes, so kind of self respect that he got, that he achieved, that it was only because of Mr. Lamb. When he started saying, even he said to his mother, "My face doesn't matter to me." ठीक है उसने ये बात बोली थी ना towards in the second scene when he was at his home कि it is not about my face. So this all shows that he's come out of that self or that obsession about his looks. So and there's much more in life to be explored. This is what he feels. He was very pessimistic earlier and blamed his burnt face for everything. But Mr. Lamb act as a ray of he acted as a ray of hope in his life, and he taught him the optimistic way to lead life. Yes, good. Okay, so I will be asking a few extra questions from you now, and that would be about this chapter, and I would send an assignment also. I'm going to read out a passage and you will answer questions, okay? You could lock yourself up in a room and never leave it. There was a man who did that. He was afraid, you see, of everything in this world. A bus might run him over, or a man might breathe deadly germs onto him, or a donkey might kick him to death, or lightning might strike him over. Or he might love a girl and the girl would leave him. And he might slip on a banana skin and fall, and people who saw him would laugh their heads off. So he went into his room and locked the door and got into his bed and stayed there. Who speaks these lines and to whom? Very simple.
Ma'am, Mr. Lamb speak these lines to Derry.
Mr. Lamb to Delhi. What did the man mention in these lines? Fear. What was the fear in the man's? Fear of death and fear of being sarcastic. Sarcastic. Yes, he feared everything actually. He feared dying and he felt that he could elaborate it. How are you going to elaborate it? He feared everything, he feared dying, he feared that he would die. Ma'am, it was like fear of something which is uncomfortable, something which is painful. Like he also mentioned that even if someone he loves leaves him, so that is a bit painful. That is like the feeling of abandonedness, that someone has left him, loneliness, and also death as well. Yes, and also, he felt he was afraid of each and everything. Like he felt that bus would run him over. He felt that he might slip on a banana skin, and people would laugh at him. So he feared each and everything. And what did he do to save himself? What did the man do to save himself?
He locked himself in a room.
Yes, he locked himself up in a room, and what happened to him thereafter?
He died.
How did he die?
He died. A painting fell on him, on his head, and he died.
A picture fell off the wall onto his head, and it just killed him. Okay, fine. Next question is, what are the peculiar things that Derry notices about Mr. Lamb? What peculiar? What do you mean by peculiar? Peculiar क्या होता है बच्चे? What is peculiar? Yes, strange.
Ma'am, strange.
Yes, strange. So what are the strange things that Derry notices about Mr. Lamb?
Ma'am, may I?
Yes, Rajdeep.
Ma'am, Derry, when comes to Mr. Lamb's house, he noticed that the gate of his house is always open. There are no curtains in the windows, and Mr. Lamb talks a lot. I mean, he talks very differently. He sees life in a very different way. I think these are the peculiar things he notices.
You said he always leaves the gate open. There are no blinds on the
Yes.
windows. There are no curtains on the windows. What else? What else?
Ma'am, I said that he talks in a different way. I mean,
Yes.
he sees life in a different manner.
Yes, he said that he talked differently. Anything else?
Ma'am, his thinking also, like his thinking was quite, Derry felt that he was not similar to the people. Though he was saying that you are also afraid of me and you are similar, but his thinking and the way he used to present everything in a question form very curiously, keep on asking questions to Derry. And also whenever he used to make conclusions after every question asked to Derry, and it was just like his words used to be very, ma'am, in a way, I'll say like a very strange manner that Derry felt that you are trying to
and even
tell me also in the form of a question.
In the form of a question, and he even said that It doesn't matter to him whether people answer his questions, but he likes asking. So, the kind of so the way he spoke, Derry found it very strange. And what was about friends, Akarshita? What is it about friends that you find peculiar?
Yes, Mama, he considered everybody as a friend. He
Yes.
says that they are neither my enemies and everybody is my friend. So that was a very strange thing, that how can somebody just met someone can be friends with them. So it can be acquaintance, but it can't be friends in the first instance. And his rhetorical questions and everything about him, his whole persona was so much strange for Derry,
For Derry.
because he was in an atmosphere that was much different than that of Mr. Lamb.
Yes, the atmosphere, the kind of situation where he was in, it was totally different, and that is why Derry liked him. This was what attracted Derry towards Mr. Lamb, because he was totally unlike other people. Okay, next is Derry tell Mr. Lamb that he's afraid of seeing himself in the mirror in the play on the face of it. So why does he tell him that he's afraid of seeing himself? Yes, the mirror. Yes, Aryan.
Ma'am, because Terry says that people look at his face and call it a very terrible thing. People don't like to see his face, and they call it the ugliest thing they ever saw in their lives.
Yes.
So, according to Derry, people are afraid of him, and this gave him some insecurities. That's why he does not want to look himself in the face and acknowledge himself as the ugliest person.
Yes, very good. So, because people always kept reminding him of his burnt face, and even they went to the extent, to so much an extent that one lady even called. There he saw his face to the eyes of the others. Yes, very good. And once a woman even looked at him and she said, "What was it that the woman said?" She said that that's a face only a mother could love. So such kind of things that aggravated his inferiority complex, and he felt that he himself was afraid to look at his face in the mirror. How does Mr. Lamb try to remove the baseless fears of Delhi? How does he try to remove the baseless fears of Delhi? What does yes, Tushita?
Yes, Mama, Mr. Lamb tells him that he has two eyes, two ears, two legs, two arms, brain, and a tongue like others. And he tells him that he can do and achieve whatever he likes to do. In this way, he tries to remove his fears of him.
Yes, very good. So he tells him that, like others, if he has a burnt face, then there's so many things that he has. Like he has two arms, he has two legs, he has two eyes and ears, he has a tongue, he has a brain, a working brain, and he could do whatever he wanted in his life if he was focused. If he was focused over something, he would be able to do whatever he liked. And if he has a firm mind, this is what he said, that he could even do better than many of the others. So he tried to, that ways he tried to remove the baseless fears of Delhi. So I would be sharing an assignment, not the questions. It is not necessary that the same questions would be there, but you have to complete that assignment and submit it by Friday. Okay, Bache, have a nice day and complete your work. I'll be sending it after I go home, after I reach home.